Hello everyone. Enjoy these pleasant, relaxing moments while you watch the story. The city hospital fell into chaos when a 10-year-old girl was brought into the emergency room. The entire hallway seemed to freeze as the emergency room door opened, and nurses hurriedly pushed the stretcher inside. Emma, a small girl with a thin body, lay on a stretcher with a pale face, her eyes wide open in panic. But what stunned everyone was her belly, unusually swollen, like a woman in her 7th month of pregnancy. The doctors looked at each other in shock, trying to find a reasonable explanation. A nurse hurriedly checked Emma's medical records. There was no sign that she had entered puberty, no menstruation, no physiological development. Her body was still like a child's, and yet her belly was round and round as if she was carrying a living being. The atmosphere in the emergency room became tense. A doctor muttered, his voice mixed with disbelief and panic. How is it possible? How can a child who has never gone through puberty get pregnant? No one has the answer. No one can explain what is happening to Emma. But when doctors conducted tests, they discovered a horrifying truth. The city hospital was still in turmoil when the test results were announced. Doctors, nurses, even passing patients couldn't believe what they were hearing. A 10-year-old girl is actually pregnant. This is impossible, unreasonable, and unprecedented. But the numbers, the results displayed on the test panel, cannot lie. Emma's mother stood dumbfounded in front of the emergency room, her hands clenched so tightly that they turned white. Her heart beat continuously, each beat as if it was about to burst in her chest. When the doctor walked out with a file in his hand, his eyes were filled with hesitation, as if he was trying to find the gentlest way to convey a truth that no one wanted to hear. We checked very carefully, the doctor said, his voice calm but a little trembling. Emma is really pregnant. Everything seemed to crumble. For a moment, the space around Emma's mother seemed to disappear. All sounds and voices around became distant. The whole world seemed to have only that sentence echoing in her mind. No way. Her whole body trembled. Her eyes widened in horror, as if she had just heard something completely crazy, so absurd that it was unacceptable. Her legs seemed to lose all strength and she collapsed to the cold hospital floor. A nurse rushed over to help her, but she was almost no longer aware of her surroundings. How could this happen? Her daughter is only 10 years old, an innocent, pure child, never showing any signs of maturity. How is that possible? Emma's father, unlike his wife, reacted in a completely different way. He almost exploded as soon as he heard the doctor's words. No way, he roared, his voice filled with anger. She never leaves the house. It's always in our sight. How could it get pregnant? You checked wrongly. You must check again immediately. He rushed towards the doctor, his eyes bloodshot with anger, panic evident on every line of his face. His hands were clenched into fists, his body shaking with uncontrollable anger. Another nurse quickly stepped forward, trying to calm the man who was losing control. We have checked many times. There can be no mistakes. Are not. I do not believe, he screamed, his eyes blazing. Emma has never gone far, never left home without us. He doesn't even have a boyfriend, and has never played with other children without our supervision. You people are lying! This cannot happen. The desperation in his voice made the entire hospital hallway more tense than ever. The people around stopped and looked at him with sympathy and confusion. No one can explain it. No one can understand what is going on. A little girl had never shown signs of puberty, had never had a period, had never even had physical development like an adult, and yet she was pregnant. How could this happen? The doctor tried to stay calm, placing his hand on the shoulder of the trembling man in front of him. We understand this is a big shock to your family, he said, his voice gentle but firm. But the test cannot be wrong. We have conducted it many times to ensure accuracy. Emma is actually pregnant. The mother, still kneeling on the floor, silently shook her head, tears streaming down her pale face. She cannot accept this truth. Cannot. She clutched her skirt, her lips trembling, unable to speak. Her little daughter, the little angel that she always protected and protected. How could she fall into this situation? Another nurse stepped forward and gently said, We also checked. There are no signs of attack. There are no signs that she was forced or abused. Those words only made the room become even more silent. If Emma wasn't harmed by someone, then what happened? How can a child who has never been away from home, never had contact with anyone outside, become pregnant? Emma's father took a few steps back. His trembling hands clasped his head, trying to find a reasonable explanation, but was completely helpless. He didn't want to believe it. He couldn't believe it. But he could not deny the truth that was appearing before his eyes. Another doctor stepped forward, his voice filled with seriousness. We need to conduct some more tests to find out the cause. But even if they find the answer, will anyone dare to believe this truth? The hospital was engulfed in a heavy, tense atmosphere covering every corner. When the DNA test was conducted, all the doctors and nurses held their breath waiting for the results. No one dared to predict, but everyone understood that they were about to face an unimaginable truth. The sound of the printer echoed in the medical testing room. Each sheet of paper slid out with complex numbers and charts. A doctor picked up the results table, his hands shaking so much that he almost dropped it. His eyes quickly scanned each line, each number, then suddenly stopped. His heart felt like it wanted to stop beating. Impossible. No one in the hospital had ever seen such a result before. The doctors checked again, 3 times, 4 times, but everything remained unchanged. The truth is appearing right before their eyes, even though it is so crazy that no one wants to believe it. Emma is pregnant. Copy of yourself. The medical room fell into an eerie silence. The doctor held the results and walked out of the room, his face pale as if he had just seen something from another world. When he faced Emma's parents, both of them were still extremely confused after the continuous shock. Emma's father saw the doctor's unusual expression and his heart unconsciously tightened. What's going on? His voice was hoarse. Are the test results wrong? The doctor swallowed hard, his eyes filled with hesitation. He knew once this truth was told, it would change everything. No, there was no mistake. His voice was low, heavy as if carrying the weight of the world. But the results showed something that I had never seen before. Mrs. Emma could not bear this tension any longer. She almost shouted, "We can't stand these mysteries anymore. Doctor, please speak clearly." The doctor took a deep breath as if gathering all his courage. The DNA of the fetus completely matched Emma's DNA. That sentence was like a bomb exploding in the hospital hallway. Emma's father was stunned. His eyes widened, not understanding what that meant. Emma's mother almost collapsed again. What do you mean?" she stammered. The doctor glanced at each dumbfounded face in front of him, then said seriously, "In other words, the baby in Emma's womb is not anyone else's. It is a replica of Emma herself." Silence prevailed, lasting so long that one could clearly hear the clock hands ticking. No one spoke up. No one dared to move. It wasn't until Emma's father exploded, as if he was trying to deny this unthinkable. "What kind of joke is this? A child cannot give birth to a copy of itself. This is not a science fiction movie. You guys are wrong." It must be wrong. He snatched the results sheet from the doctor's hand. His eyes quickly scanned each number, but he couldn't understand it. He just knew that if this was true, then it went against every law of nature. Emma's mother, her face as white as a sheet of paper, whispered as if she could not believe her own words. "Is this an unknown form of asexual reproduction?" The doctor clasped the results sheet in his hand. He knew that this story was not simply a strange medical phenomenon. It far beyond from anything that science has ever recorded. And the truly scariest question of all is, and who or what caused this to happen? The newly revealed truth about the fetus's DNA has thrown the hospital into unprecedented chaos. Doctors, genetic experts, and even leading researchers were urgently summoned. A 10-year-old girl becomes pregnant with a clone of herself. Not just a special medical case, but a mystery that could change humanity's understanding of life. However, the most important question remains unanswered. What caused this to happen? The head physician, Dr. Richard Coleman, decided to turn over all of Emma's medical records. If this phenomenon had a cause, it must lie somewhere in her past. When he opened the file, his eyes quickly scanned Emma's routine medical checkups since birth. Everything seemed normal, until he saw a record from 7 years ago. The hospital admission was when Emma was 3 years old. His fingers suddenly tightened around the edge of the file as he read the concise but mysterious words. Diagnosis: acute immunodeficiency of unknown cause. Treatment method: experimental medicine, code XN9B27. Hospital performed: unknown. Record is missing information. Doctor in charge: no name, just an employee ID code. Dr. Coleman frowned. This is so unusual. All children's medical records must be fully recorded. Information about the hospital or doctor in charge cannot be missing. He turned to the next page, and his heart stopped when he saw a handwritten line. Very short, very simple, but containing a terrifying truth. The patient recovered quickly after using the experimental drug. There are no immediate side effects. No immediate side effects? So what about the long term? Dr. Coleman immediately called Emma's parents into a private room. When they walked in, both of their faces were still filled with panic after the shock of the DNA test results. Emma's father was the first to speak, his voice still full of doubt. Doctor, we still don't believe the results. There is definitely something wrong. Coleman raised his hand to stop him. Do you remember that Emma was seriously ill when she was 3 years old? Both immediately stopped. Emma's mother's eyes flashed with confusion. Then she turned to her husband as if waiting for an answer from him. Emma's father frowned. His voice slowed as if he was trying to remember something far away. We do remember. Emma had a very high fever for many days and her body was seriously weakened. But then, it went away naturally. Naturally cured? Coleman emphasized the word. I mean, Emma's father hesitated. The doctor said they found a special treatment. We didn't ask much. We just knew. Emma recovered very quickly. That treatment is an experimental drug. Coleman showed them the file. Do you know anything about this medicine? Both looked at the file, their eyes widening in surprise. Obviously, they have no memory of this. Or they are intentionally forgetting. Emma's mother shook her head, her hands shaking. No way. We never agreed to drug testing our daughter. Definitely a mistake. But the words on the file do not lie. Coleman carefully observed their reactions. There's something wrong. A gap in their memory. Or something they don't want to remember. Emma's father clenched his teeth, his face hardening. We don't really remember. At that time, Emma was very weak. We were willing to do anything as long as she could survive. But, doctor, what does this have to do with her being pregnant? Coleman closed his eyes for a second, then said heavily, we suspect that the drug changed Emma's body in a way that no one could have predicted. The room fell into dead silence. Emma's parents looked at each other, then looked back at the doctor with utter confusion. What do you mean? Coleman put the file down on the table. I mean, there's a possibility. Emma's not the only kid who's ever taken this drug, and maybe she is not the only one experiencing this strange thing. No one dared to utter a word, but they know one thing. They need to find out the truth, and that truth may be more horrifying than anything they ever imagined. The hospital was engulfed in a stuffy atmosphere. No one dared mention Emma's DNA results, but the silence weighed heavier than any words. The girl's parents sat motionless next to the hospital bed, their eyes empty. Doctors and nurses who once tried to find a medical reason for this case can now only exchange fearful looks. The next morning, a group of people appeared. No one knows who they are. No one knows where they come from. They wear white blouses like doctors, but have no name tags, no badges, no introductions. They did not walk hastily like regular doctors, nor did they stop under judgmental eyes. They arrived with a strange calmness, as if they had known this would happen. They stopped in front of the hospital director's office. The leader, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes, placed a stack of documents on the table. We came to take Emma away. The hospital director looked at the document, but when he opened it, it was completely empty inside. He looked up, eyes skeptical. Who are you? Why do you want to take the patient away? The man smiled, a smile without any emotion. She doesn't belong here. No explanation, no conviction. Just a cold statement, as if it were obvious. Emma is our patient. Her family has the right to decide. The silence lasted. The man did not argue, just placed a white envelope on the table. No stamp, no shipping address, just a small piece of paper inside. She doesn't belong here. We will be back. The hospital director tightened his grip on the paper. His hands were cold. When he looked up, the group of people had disappeared, as if they had never existed. Emma's mother shook her head, her hands shaking. No way. We never agreed to drug testing our daughter. Definitely a mistake. But the words on the file do not lie. Coleman carefully observed their reactions. There's something wrong. A gap in their memory. Or something they don't want to remember. Emma's father clenched his teeth, his face hardening. We don't really remember. At that time, Emma was very weak. We were willing to do anything as long as she could survive. But, doctor, what does this have to do with her being pregnant? Coleman closed his eyes for a second, then said heavily, we suspect that the drug changed Emma's body in a way that no one could have predicted. The room fell into dead silence. Emma's parents looked at each other, then looked back at the doctor with utter confusion. What do you mean? Coleman put the file down on the table. I mean, there's a possibility. Emma's not the only kid who's ever taken this drug, and maybe she is not the only one experiencing this strange thing. No one dared to utter a word, but they know one thing. They need to find out the truth, and that truth may be more horrifying than anything they ever imagined. The hospital was engulfed in a stuffy atmosphere. No one dared mention Emma's DNA results, but the silence weighed heavier than any words. The girl's parents sat motionless next to the hospital bed, their eyes empty. Doctors and nurses who once tried to find a medical reason for this case can now only exchange fearful looks. The next morning, a group of people appeared. No one knows who they are. No one knows where they come from. They wear white blouses like doctors, but have no name tags, no badges, no introductions. They did not walk hastily like regular doctors, nor did they stop under judgmental eyes. They arrived with a strange calmness, as if they had known this would happen. They stopped in front of the hospital director's office. The leader, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes, placed a stack of documents on the table. We came to take Emma away. The hospital director looked at the document, but when he opened it, it was completely empty inside. He looked up, eyes skeptical. Who are you? Why do you want to take the patient away? The man smiled, a smile without any emotion. She doesn't belong here. No explanation, no conviction. Just a cold statement, as if it were obvious. Emma is our patient. Her family has the right to decide. The silence lasted. The man did not argue, just placed a white envelope on the table. No stamp, no shipping address, just a small piece of paper inside. She doesn't belong here. We will be back. The hospital director tightened his grip on the paper. His hands were cold. When he looked up, the group of people had disappeared, as if they had never existed. At the same time, Emma's parents received the news. Her mother held the paper in her hand, her eyes trembling, trying to read every word but couldn't believe what she was seeing. Emma's father clenched his hands into fists, so angry that he almost exploded. Who are they? What do they want with my daughter? No one has the answer. But clearly, Emma is not a normal child, and there is a terrible secret being hidden. They will come back, and this time, no one may be able to stop them. That night, the hospital was so quiet that you could hear the wind whistling through the glass doors. Emma's mother sat quietly next to her daughter's hospital bed, her eyes staring blankly into space. All day today, she had to accept so many horrifying truths that her mind became numb. Emma was still sleeping soundly, her little face as peaceful as an angel, completely unaware that her whole world had just changed forever. As the clock hands ticked past midnight, a soft knock sounded on the door. Softly, slowly, as if the person outside didn't want anyone else to hear. Emma's mother was startled and turned her head. Who would come at this hour? She hesitated for a moment, then stood up and gingerly walked to open the door. Outside, standing in the darkness of the hospital hallway, was a man wearing a white blouse. He had a harsh appearance, a haggard face and eyes filled with something unpredictable. Emma's mother frowned. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice a whisper. The man did not answer immediately. He glanced around, as if afraid of being watched, then slowly held out a small object and pressed it into her hand. "A USB. You have to see this," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "But don't let anyone know I gave it to you." Before Emma's mother could ask anything else, the man turned around and walked quickly into the darkness of the hospital hallway, disappearing without a trace. Emma's mother stood still for a moment, her heart beating loudly in her chest. The USB was in her palm, small but carrying a strange weight. She knew she couldn't ignore this. In her small apartment, under the faint light from the desk lamp, Emma's mother tremblingly plugged the USB into the computer. The screen flashed for a few seconds. Then a single video file appeared. Video files have titles Project Genesis 2013. Emma's mother felt her whole body cold. With a heavy breath, she clicked on the video. The screen suddenly showed footage from a laboratory. Not an ordinary laboratory. This place looks like a research facility, extremely top secret. Advanced medical equipment, cold fluorescent lights, and people in white blouses moved in silence. The camera pans over a group of scientists standing around a surgical table. Between them, on a sterile tray, was one tiny embryo, less than 2 weeks old. But what stunned Emma's mother was this: they don't put that embryo into the body of an adult woman. They are implanting it into another embryo. The image on the screen shakes slightly as the camera zooms in on a data panel next to it. Test model E01MA. Emma's mother put her hand to her mouth. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. Emma, her daughter, not a normal child. She could barely take her eyes off the screen as the team of scientists continued to work. They whisper complex terms, exchange nods, and numbers are entered into computers. Then suddenly, a man appeared in front of the camera. He wore a white blouse, but not like the rest of the scientists. He had the appearance of a leader, with cold and sharp eyes. He looked straight at the camera, then spoke in a low voice. Project Genesis, Phase 2. We have succeeded. For the first time in history, humans have created an individual capable of asexual regeneration, right during embryonic development. Emma's mother felt her ears ringing. What she just heard, so crazy. She rewound the video, listening to those words over and over again. Every time she heard it again, she felt a shiver run down her spine. Emma is not a natural child. The girl is an experiment, a secret project, part of a plan she never knew about. She gasped, a feeling of terror rising in her chest. But why? Why did they create Emma? Why was she born? And most importantly, if this was an experiment, then what was its real purpose? That question kept echoing in her mind, bringing with it a nightmare she never thought she would have to face. In the darkness of the room, the light from the computer screen shone on her face, pale, trembling, and filled with fear. This truth is just the beginning. The hospital room was completely white, with only the heart rate monitor emitting monotonous sounds. The faint light from the night lamp fell on Emma's small face, creating streaks of light and shadow on her pale skin. For days, the doctor had been saying that Emma wouldn't wake up right away. But at the moment, everyone was exhausted from the unimaginable things happening. The girl opened her eyes. Emma's mother, who had never left the hospital room for a moment, immediately jumped up when she felt her daughter's hand move slightly. "Emma, I'm awake!" Her voice trembled, both with joy and horror at what was happening. The girl didn't say anything right away. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, as if trying to remember some distant dream. The whole room was engulfed in tense silence, with only the girl's weak breathing mixed with the sound of her mother's rapid heartbeat. Then suddenly Emma spoke, slowly, calm. But every word she said was like a sharp blade cutting through the air. "Mom, I remember everything." Emma's mother squeezed her daughter's little hand. Her whole body trembled. She looked into her daughter's eyes, and for the first time, she felt something was not right. Emma's eyes were deeper than before. There is no longer the innocence of a 10-year-old child. No more panic of a patient just waking up from a coma. Instead, in that gaze, there was something calm, but strange. "Remember what?" she asked, her voice choked. Emma did not answer immediately. The girl still kept a slight smile on her lips, a peaceful but mysterious smile. Then she tilted her head slightly, her eyes blinked slightly, and uttered a sentence that made everything in the room freeze. "You are not the first child, but you will be the last." A chill ran down Emma's mother's spine. She let go of her daughter's hand reflexively. Her heart beat strongly, as if she had a premonition that a terrible truth was gradually being revealed. "You're not the first child? Will you be the last? What does that statement mean?" She tried to understand, but every thought in her mind became chaotic. Emma did not explain further. The girl just quietly closed her eyes, as if she had said everything she needed to say. Emma's mother felt a strange relief flow through her body, but it wasn't real relief. It's like that feeling when one has just stepped over the edge of a terrible secret, but hasn't really seen the whole truth yet. She turned to look at the doctor, who had witnessed it all. He stood there, his face pale, his trembling hands clutching the medical records. No one dared to speak up. No one dared to break this strange silence, because everyone knows an even bigger mystery lies ahead. And Emma, she remembers everything. The hospital was no longer chaotic, but the atmosphere was still heavy like a storm about to collapse. Emma's parents did not leave their daughter's side. Fear was still deep in their eyes. But strangely, amidst all the chaos, amidst the confusion of adults, Emma is the calmest person. The 10-year-old girl sat quietly on the hospital bed, her small hand gently caressing her belly. No more fear, no more panic. There was just a strange calmness, as if she knew everything from the beginning. The night outside the hospital was eerily quiet. But then, he came back. The mysterious man stood right in front of the hospital door. No one knew where he came from, nor did anyone see him go through the gate. He was simply there, like a ghost hidden in the darkness. His face was cold and emotionless. His eyes were as deep as an endless abyss, reflecting the faint light from the hospital hallway. Not a single doctor or nurse spoke up. They didn't see him. He does not exist in their world. Only Emma saw him. The girl slowly stood up, her bare feet touching the cold tile floor of the hospital. No one stopped her. Her parents, who had protected her with everything they had, didn't even notice that Emma was leaving, as if she was never there. Emma walked out into the hallway, the neon lights on the ceiling flickering as if the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for this moment. The man looked at the girl for a long time, then spoke in a low, cold voice. "Little girl, we came to take you home." Emma is not afraid. No hesitation, no tears, no panic. The girl just smiled. A gentle but determined smile. "I have found my real family," the girl replied, her eyes sparkling but determined. "I will stay." In that moment, everything seemed to stop. The space between Emma and the man seemed frozen, as if the entire universe was witnessing an important choice. The man looked at the girl for a long time. In his eyes, something wavered, something that had never happened before. Then he turned away. Don't say another word. No objection. Not angry. He simply disappeared into the darkness. Emma breathed a sigh of relief, as if she had just freed herself from something that couldn't be named. When the girl returned to the hospital room, her parents were still sitting there, as if they had never noticed her absence. Dad looked at her with worried eyes. "Emma, what's wrong?" The girl just smiled, gently climbed into bed and pulled the blanket over herself. "It's nothing, Dad." Emma won, but is this really the end? Because the moment Emma closed her eyes, outside the hospital window, a pair of eyes were still watching her. Many years have passed since that fateful night at the hospital, where Emma stood face to face with the mysterious man and chose to stay. The little girl has now grown up, carrying within her not only the memory of an event that no one can explain, but also the awakening of the profound meaning of life. Emma is no longer afraid of her past, nor does she seek to bury what happened. Instead, she accepted it as an inseparable part of herself. She pursued a path of science, determined to understand the mysteries of life, not to create it, but to understand its true value. Unanswered questions about herself, about the origin of life, about the thin line between science and wonder, have led Emma further than anyone. She becomes a famous researcher who dares to face things that the world always avoids. Then one day, standing on the most prestigious podium, in front of hundreds of people waiting for great speeches, Emma raised her voice, low but strong. "We don't need to find ways to create life in a meaningless way." The entire auditorium was silent. No one said a word. She stopped and scanned the scientists and eminent intellectuals of the era sitting in front of her. Then she continued, her voice full of understanding and a sincerity that nothing could deny. What really matters is how we appreciate what we have. It's a simple statement, but it changes the world. Those who sought immortality suddenly realize the value of time. Those who are busy pursuing endless creativity suddenly see that sometimes meaning does not lie in creating, but in preserving. That saying not only echoed in the hall that day, but was also quoted and engraved, becoming a guideline for future generations. Emma did not choose to become a creator of life. She chose to be its protector, and that is exactly what she wants to leave to the world. The darkness recedes, but the truth remains. As the night gradually disappeared and the dawn slowly shone through the hospital windows, everything seemed to have returned to normal. Emma's parents were still by her side, their hands holding each other tightly, as if afraid that if they let go, their daughter would disappear into a world beyond human understanding. But no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't change the truth. Emma wasn't like any other child. She is a miracle, a mystery, and also a testament to a question that has never been answered. Do people really understand the life they hold? Doctors have been researching for many days, from unbelievable DNA tests to medical analyses that cannot be explained by current science. They tried to find answers, trying to put Emma into biological formulas, hypotheses about genetic mutations, or even asexual reproduction. But in the end, every formula, every equation is meaningless when faced with a simple fact. Hello, everyone. Emma is not a product of the laboratory, not a failed experiment or an uncontrolled mutation. The girl is a human. Scientists, no matter how talented, cannot explain why a child can carry a copy of itself. They couldn't understand why the girl was not scared, not desperate, but strangely calm. None of them understand what Emma understood long ago. Life is not something to control, but something to cherish. Emma decided her own destiny. When a mysterious man appeared to take her away, she chose to stay, chose her family, and chose the life she deserved. And that's what made the difference. Not technology, not science, not soulless experiments determine human destiny, but they themselves, with their love and choices, can do that. Emma's parents don't need to understand everything that happened. They don't need explanations about genetics or advanced biology. They only know that their daughter is still here, still a small but resilient girl, still smiling gently as usual. And that's enough. There are things that don't need to be explained. There are mysteries that do not need to be exposed. There are things people should not seek to control. But one thing cannot be denied. Love never has limits. And life, no matter how wonderful, no matter how confusing, will always be worth cherishing.